Hey, my friends, let's talk about some various tips, prepper life tips, if you will. And there's so many of them out there that you can come up with yourself or you can find online. There's just so many. And so this is just scratching the surface, but I find it fun to kind of dip into this from time to time, just to kind of maybe for some of you guys to have a different perspective on how you see the world and how you could possibly live your life. And so I'm just going to run through some of these, and maybe you'll find something that, is helpful to you. So the first thing here is to break larger goals into smaller parts. So often we look at the big picture and we freak out, and we don't even attempt to do anything to that goal to make it happen, just because it's so overwhelming. And so this is what I do like all the time. Recently, I started the process of completely going through everything in my house. And at first, I didn't even want to start the whole process because it was really something I didn't want to get going. It was very overwhelming. So what I did was I just divided my rooms in the house in half and gave myself anywhere from 1 to 2 days for every half room and each division of the room. And guess what? I'm very productive now. It wasn't that of a big of a deal when I start looking at, okay, if I just have to go through a half a room every day or two, it's not a problem. So I'm getting a lot done. And at this very moment, I'm already halfway through the house. The next tip would be to learn how things work. And this is because things happen for a reason. When you're becoming more prepared, prep for those events which are most likely to occur first. It doesn't make sense to prep for things that have never happened in history or very unlikely to happen. There are people out there that just have tunnel vision within preparedness. And instead of preparing for things that are, more common, they only want to prepare for a super volcano or a meteor strike or some type of nuclear Armageddon, and these things really are less likely to happen. Keep certain things to yourself. There's no need to tell other people what you have and what kind of skills you've mastered. And so this is the way that I look at it. Silence is the best answer to most questions. Also learn to avoid harm. A lot of people just walk right into harm, and they haven't learned to practice avoidance. And it's not because you're scared, it's because you're smart. If you're out by yourself hiking in the woods, you avoid injury for a real reason, because if you got injured, you may not be able to get back to safety, or to where you need to be, right? To be safe. And so it's much easier to avoid harm than to deal with harm itself, head on. So there you go, right? And I want to also say that if you are on camping trips, these are great opportunities typically to practice problem-solving skills. I see sometimes families go out and they put up their tent, they got their campfire going, and they never get their kids, anytime. They never pull them aside or have family time, and learn something. They don't. They just let their kids run around wild the whole time. And nothing wrong with kids being kids, but having a few minutes, even if you just teach them one skill or you expose them to one skill, just by a demonstration, that's one step closer to them learning something. That's important. Next is happiness is a choice you make. And so it's up to you. You have to do that. You have to do the things that create that happiness. Happiness is not something that is given to you. Also, you want to make peace with your past. Forgiveness, it really is, for a lot of people, the definition of freedom. And talking about freedom, let's talk about debt. And debt to me is more like prison. You can become a slave to debt. And so that's something that you also want to avoid. You don't have to explain everything to everyone. I'm just going to leave that as it is. Don't rely on other people, on the outside world to feel complete. And because you already are complete inside. It's just that you have to realize that, I guess, that reality exists within. And so there's a lot of times that people go external for satisfaction, to satisfy yourself, instead of going inward. Satisfaction. I don't know if that's a word. Did I just say that? Oh boy. To be satisfied is what I meant. And a lot of people like to think that they can just find someone or something to feel whole or satisfied when it's all inside. That really is, where that comes from. So just be aware of that. Also, don't expect so much from others. So many people get into problems because of that. They're like, oh man, I so disappointed in so-and-so. But you created your own standards, and you probably didn't even tell the other person that, right? So how is the other person supposed to know what they're supposed to be doing or acting or whatever? And so in my life, I've been a supervisor a few times here and there and in different jobs. And let me tell you, you have to verbally talk to people and lay out the expectations or they won't know. So even if you're not a boss, and even if you're not in charge of something, just having friends, for example, is a good example of not having a lot of expectations. You obviously want them to be respectful and this and that, but there is a point though that you just the more that you don't expect, the more it can be enjoyable because everything's a surprise, right? When they actually do something that is, I guess, what you want. Also, be careful who you call your friends. And I've heard this for a while now, and it goes like this. Sometimes it's better to have 4 quarters than 100 pennies. 4 quarters than 100 pennies. And I think you can probably put that together. Quality is so much better than quantity. And lastly, I just want to point out that, to have big life goals, have something to work towards throughout your life. And don't just say, well, I'm done. I'm done with the goals in my life. When you feel like that you have, most of what you want, go for the big things. And even if you never obtain it, you can probably get very far with it. And if you really, really want something, you probably will get it. It's not guaranteed, but you probably will get really far or you will get it. And this is the magic though. And we talked about this on the channel a few times, but just one more time, I think it's appropriate to bring this up. And that humans typically overestimate what they can do in the short term, but they underestimate their capabilities in the long term. And so humans are not the best judge of what they can do. That we have a little problem when it comes to putting ourselves in a timeline. Humans just don't do well at estimation. It's been shown over and over. We're just not that good at it. And just like we don't have, really good recall in our memories, sometimes we have very selective memories. And so it's very important to kind of look back and see things as they were, if it's even possible. Sometimes we have a lot of problems with that because we have a lot of emotions at the time, and it may have skewed how the event really was. But it's really important to have good information about what has happened in our lives. And it's really good if, to have information about how we react to the world, because we just may default in a certain way. And if we know that, then we can take that into account in our, quest to understand ourselves and to understand why the world is reacting to us in a certain way. So, hey, thanks for checking the video out. I hope these prepper life tips helped you in some way. You guys take care, and I'll catch you on the next video.